Alright, it's time for the Japanese Grand Prix observations. Although this time is probably a fallout. We've got a two-time world champion, a bit of an optics disaster, and some audits. Some fallout from all of these. Now we're going to start with the two-time world champion, alright? Congrats to Maximilian Verstappen. He's now a two-time world champion. Unfortunately, both championships are going to be shaded in controversy on account of this budget cap breach now, right? That one, we'll get to it when we get to it, but that one is very hard to pocket away. Like, I don't really see how F1 or the FIA are going to pocket that one away, likewise Red Bull. How do I say this? It won't remain a rumbling narrative in the mainstream media. You're not going to hear... Well, unless Ferrari and Mercedes make a really big deal of it, but it remains to be seen what happens there. But we'll get to that when we get to that. Anyway, we've got a two-time world champion. Alright, so quote unquote two-time world champion. And while there was a royal chair waiting for him, and there was a champions room as well. Now this is completely bizarre, okay? This never happened before. This never happened before. Now, I've got no problems with it. I'm just assuming that it's going to be done again for next season's champion and the season after that's champion and what have you. Now, alternatively, this is a Honda play because Honda want to get back into F1 now with the rumblings they're making. It looked like for a second that Porsche were going to break a deal with Red Bull, and now that's seemingly off the table because Honda went back in and they've upped their sponsorship agreement with Red Bull. They've now got an HRC badge on the nose of the car, and well, if anyone, like, here's my working scenario for this, right? There's someone high up at Honda who, because this race wasn't supposed to, well, let me not say it wasn't supposed to be full points, because regarding why the race was awarded with full points, right? Because the working assumption is we didn't do enough laps for the full points to be awarded. So why were full points awarded? Full points were awarded because we saw the checkered flag. That's the conclusion of the game. We saw the checkered flag. We've been keeping up with the esotericas. Not exactly all that active, but whatever esotericas have been posted, that was the conclusion of the game. The game concluded. It would have been something different if, I don't know, there was a red flag 2 minutes before time and the checkered flag wasn't thrown, right? Because the checkered flag is thrown, as the rule, as I'm reading it, right, I'm not going to bother fishing up the rule or anything, right? But as I'm reading the rule, the way I'm understanding it is that because the checkered flag was thrown, that was the conclusion of the Grand Prix. You ran a full Grand Prix, even if it's not to the lap count. Yeah, otherwise there would be problems with awarding full points on, like, let's say they actually raced at Spa last year. And what type of lap times would they be running? Like 2 minute 10 lap times or something? I don't know. Let's assume that they don't make distance at Spa because the race starts wet or something, right? Let's assume they don't make distance at Singapore because the race starts wet and it stays wet because it's actually raining, and instead of just the track not drying up, it's actually raining, and they let the cars race, right? That Grand Prix might not even go 70%, right? Add a safety car here or there, or maybe no safety car at all. Maybe all the drivers are just on immense form that day. So there's no safety car at all. That race is only going 70%. You can't exactly hand out full points there, but if the checkered flag is thrown, it's a full points event. Any other instance where it has been full points, there's been no checkered flag. Right, so the race ended. That's why full points got awarded. It's really, it looks like legalese. Like, to be frank with you, the rule looks like legalese. It seems like it can be interpreted in whichever way someone so wants on the day, interestingly enough. But yeah, the rule is there. If there's a simple optic attached to it of the checkered flag must wave, then sure, it makes sense to me. If that now gets debunked somewhere, it just gets debunked somehow in the future, then so be it. F1 are doing a Mazda anyway, right? And the whole F1 sphere is going crazy, right? So here's my working schematic for this high-ranking Honda employee who's got a soft spot for motorsports and wants to get the company back into F1. Honda are hosting the Japanese Grand Prix, right? They could crown a world champion there. Again, I'm not saying they fixed it from the start or what have you. The opportunity just arose with Leclerc running off circuit, right? That was it. And now, perhaps, this high-ranking Mandem in Japan, he threw in a bid and said, yeah, make the ruling immediately, because I need to see a champion get crowned here at Suzuka. Here at the Suzuka circuit, Honda built, right? It's perfect advert to get his big boss man back in on F1. Oh, look at that, crowned a world champion with our intellectual property. That's our engine over there. You know, that was built and maintained, being flown back and forth to Japan. That's our engine over there. But look, we crowned a world champion. So yeah, one should just consider, if you want to say this right, because Red Bull don't have a reason to fix a championship early for Verstappen. There's no reason. He's gonna win this championship. You know, before this result, he was 100% going to win this championship. There was no way he was gonna. If he lost it somehow, well, that would be the gods striking back, wouldn't it? But there was no way he was gonna lose. So Red Bull don't have a reason to fix a result. F1, if we run with the idea that Maximilian is their F1 messiah, if we run with that idea, then likewise FIA and F1, they don't have a reason to fix a result for Maximilian Verstappen. But Honda, someone at Honda who wants to get Honda back in on motorsport full time and considers the platform valuable, or they just like it for the prestige value of it, who knows. But they might look at it and say, oh, here's an opportunity. We could crown a world champion at our circuit. We get the pictures, we show them to the boss, and we say this could be, 2 or 3 seasons out of the next 5 years. We got to do this. So anything could happen in regards to that. I'm sure Honda are gonna come back into F1 again. Honda are never done with F1, but anyway, it's very interesting that Honda is still mixing it with Red Bull. Well, that might change, considering a few things that happened, but we'll see what happens. Contracts are ironclad anyway. So yeah, the royal chair was there. Why would they have the royal chair and a bit of esoterica for you? Because he's different breed, right? He is not supposed to breed the commoners here. The royal chair, by the way, that's a Honda play as well. I don't know why someone at Honda would do this, but it's very bizarre. Like, you don't need to do all of that. You just don't need to do all of that. But anyway, likewise with the Leclerc penalty, I just got to touch on this quickly. Not really going to touch on Ferrari this Grand Prix. Yeah, Leclerc, he drove a decent race. Let me not say decent race. Well, he did drive a decent race, but he got a bit hot trying to keep up with Maximilian at the start of when the Grand Prix started for the second time. He got a bit hot trying to keep up with Maximilian and burned out his tires. And yeah, that was his Grand Prix. After that, he was really just on a recovery mission because it was risky to pit if you're at the front, not so much if you're in the midfield or near the back, like other drivers did. But anyway, the reason, if you want the canon reason for why this Leclerc penalty was handed out so quick, is because they've got film on it. Right, it's the same film as the Sir Lewis Hamilton and Sebastian Vettel situation in Canada 29. It's the same thing. Right. Likewise, Leclerc actually did impede Perez actually coming down to the start-finish straight on that little curve. So on some level, there is a justification for giving the penalty, but at the same time, there's a philosophical misunderstanding as to how some of these penalties are applied. So, for instance, at Canada and here at Suzuka, even though it's AstroTurf, the AstroTurf is not tarmac, right? The circuit already punishes the driver. Right? The circuit already punishes because you go off onto grass or this AstroTurf and your tires get dirty, you get spat back out on the road, and you're all squirrely. So the circuit's already punished the driver, as far as I'm concerned. Right? In both instances, Canada 2019 and this one, I believe the chasing driver should have just gone the other way. But oh well. Oh well. Oh well, they've got the film, they can make the justification, so that's what they've done. I still think, the penalty was going to be handed out anyway, just based off the film that came out of that. But I do believe a quick decision was bought by someone at Honda. Maybe they had read the legalese and they said, "Oh, they're getting award full points this Grand Prix. Let's buy this. Let's buy this decision." So it's a quick one. Move the chair into the room. Fucking hell, the operation gets moving quick, right? Now, the Vries is confirmed for Alphatauri. Right now, bet your bottom dollar Marco is doing a villain laugh somewhere because he just found his Yuri Vips. That's his Yuri Vips replacement. It's done. It's like Vips never happened. Some might even argue the Vries is better. Anyway, that'll be interesting to see cook over the next few seasons at Alphatauri. I assume Tsunoda might get a little hot under the collar, dealing with the Vries. If the opposite happens and he suns him, then that'll be a most interesting observation. Oh, one thing to also note. Yes, this is very important. I have to note this, right? Maximilian Verstappen and this Red Bull car they already are the most winningest car in F1 history, right? Now, they're definitely going to be the most winningest car by the end of the season by some margin. Alright, because I'm expecting Red Bull to be the fastest at all of these remaining circuits. So yeah, I do hope all of those who were crowing about, single car, single team, or single driver domination, I do hope they're making noise right about now. I really do hope. Me, I don't mind, if someone is dominant. I just don't mind that shit. I don't mind it. Because I saw Schumacher, I saw Schumacher doing his fucking thing. And that seemed like that was never gonna end. It fucking ended. You wouldn't believe it. You wouldn't believe it. If I took you back to the start of that whole period of Schumacher's domination and, you played it start to finish and you saw how it ended, you wouldn't believe it ended. Right? Do the same thing with Sir Lewis Hamilton. You wouldn't believe. Do the same thing with Seb. Do the same thing with Seb. You wouldn't believe. The very next season, it went so sideways. You wouldn't believe. Anyone who was getting riled up about domination before, for consistency, step 2, do the thing. Do the thing, right? Because me, I didn't mind the thing. No matter who was dominating, I didn't mind the thing. Anyway. Alright, I've got to get into a bit of the optics disaster that went on this Grand Prix. So, firstly, it was a wet race, and for the wet race, everyone started on inters. Now, Button said it on commentary. Very obvious that was the wrong tire to start on. Everyone was supposed to be on the wets. Supposedly, supposedly the ruling is that if the start of the Grand Prix is going to be a standing start, then the teams have choices to whether they start on inters or wets, or heck, some might even start on slicks. Right now, here's my number one problem with this. Right, and that's that this never would have happened under Bernie. This never. You know, Bernie, he would have made a fucking executive decision, given everyone an executive. Y'all are starting on these motherfucking wet tires, or there ain't gonna be no Grand Prix, and y'all gonna have to explain to all these paying fans out here why there's no Grand Prix today. You know, Bernie would play that. Bernie would play, and quite frankly, that's what they should have played here. I don't know how they let these teams start on inters in those conditions. Correct decision to start the race. Sloppy management by not mandating that the teams start on wet. Sloppy. That's all. These guys are sloppy. I don't know how these men can be so sloppy, right? It was never. I don't know if Bernie would have gotten the advice from Charlie, and then because Ferrari did not like Ferrari did not like being given executive orders by Charlie, not by Charlie, but probably advised by Charlie. But they didn't like being given executive orders by Bernie, so they threw their weight around, and it was put in the rules that if the race is to be declared a wet race, then we start on the safety car, and then you can mandate that everyone starts on the wet tires. And that power was given to Charlie Whiting. Now, because things have been altered in the past few years in regards to how wet races are run or commenced, I suppose, how they're started. Yeah, there's just a lot of sloppy management going on, and people have just let things just slip under their attention somehow. Now, you see, the problem here is that Ben Slime, he was there. Right? Ben 10 was there. He was there in the flesh. He could have handed out the executive order and said, listen, all of you over here, I don't care how many billions of dollars you got behind you, you're starting on the wet tires today. He could have done that. And that would have been the correct decision to do. Sainz wouldn't have had his accident. You wouldn't have had this whole crane scenario on the circuit. None of this shit would have happened. Alright, they still would have stopped the race when it started raining again, make no mistake about that, but you probably wouldn't have had that crash Sainz had. Now, here's the difficulty with the Sainz crash, right? The optics disaster, this Grand Prix. Now, here's the difficulty with the Sainz crash. Alright, yeah, one, he's on wrong tires. Right, the whole field are on the wrong fucking tires, right? But one, he's on wrong tires. So, he's ended up aquaplaning at a part of the circuit where no one expects an accident to happen. No, there's no options of recovery there. There's no stationary crane there. All right, there's no stationary crane there. There's nothing to help move the car that is missing a wheel or more. There's nothing. So what exactly are the marshals and everyone there? Well, the marshals just find themselves caught in the crossfire here, right? The marshals, they have to get to move in the car. Safety car was thrown, they get to work, and the crane has to come out on circuit. There's nothing else that can move. Like, the mobile crane has to come out onto the circuit. There's nothing else that can move the car. They can't push it away. It's missing a wheel. So who's at fault here for this whole crane scenario even being an issue? Right? Should a crane be out on circuit when the cars are still lapping? No. But the safety car was out, so FIA can cover themselves in that regard. Right? We had the safety car out. And there's the VSC speed limits that are supposed to be followed. But of course, as we've seen throughout this season, the drivers race the VSC. They're racing the VSC times. And you see, if we're going to talk about Jules Bianchi's legacy and all of that, and the F1 and the FIA showed no respect for Bianchi. Bianchi's legacy is actually the virtual safety car. Right? Like, keep it a buck with you. I'm gonna keep it a buck with you. Bianchi's legacy is the virtual safety car. They mandated the virtual, they put the whole apparatus together. They put the whole apparatus together to make the virtual safety car possible because of Bianchi's crash. Because what did they discover during Bianchi's crash? That you can't trust the drivers to slow down for yellow flags, right? You just can't. They're racing. You can't even trust them to slow down for VSCs. Evidently, right? On the fucking film this season, you can't trust them to slow down for VSCs. They're still racing VSCs. And people will say, oh, but Halo was put into development. Halo was thought up and put into development long before Bianchi's crash. Right? It was fast forwarded on account of Bianchi's crash because it was good optics. Right? Keep it a buck with you. It was just fucking good optics. Oh, Bianchi had this crash. Oh, we've got Halo now. Halo wasn't going to change nothing about, actually, Halo might have made shit worse. But anyway, Halo was developed because of Senna's crash. Schumacher had a crash with Suzuka. I'm not sure if that was the 2012 Abu Dhabi GP. I'm not even sure if that involved Adrian Sutil, but Schumacher had a crash somewhere in Abu Dhabi GP, maybe 2011 or 2010, somewhere there. Right, he had a crash. It looked very scary. Right, almost got hit by by a car while facing the wrong way. It looked very scary. Massa's crash with the spring that hit him in the head. Halo was developed in response to that as well, and likewise, Brundle had a crash. I think it was Brundle. I'm not sure which Brazilian Grand Prix. Maybe in the 92 Brazilian Grand Prix or something like that. He had a crash somewhere in there. Yeah, I think it involved Jos Verstappen. Verstappen's... Well, it was a Mazda. You can go watch the film. There's film and it should be a popular clip. I do believe it was Brundle that got smashed in the head with the rear tire of a car. But he was fine. Right, you see his head bob around viciously. But he was actually fine. It's fucking bizarre. Right, how some things happen in F1. So that's what Halo was actually developed for. Halo has nothing to do at all with Bianchi. Bianchi's legacy is the VSC, and I frankly just don't want to hear drivers talking about disrespecting Bianchi or what have you by having a crane on the circuit. Because y'all are racing the VSC this season. That shit's a racing opportunity all of a sudden. And none of that safety shit, none of that Bianchi's legacy shit, none of that comes into play for any of these other VSCs. Right? Gasly not even supposed to be, like, real talk here. Gasly is not even supposed to be driving flat out. It's a safety car scenario. That means he's under VSC speed limits. He's not supposed to be driving flat out. To catch up, you'll catch up. You'll catch up. Pedal the thing a little slower, and believe me, you'll catch up anyway. A safety car ain't pulling up trees. Well, the fucking safety car is pulling up trees, but relative to these fucking Formula 1 cars, it's fucking stationary. So I just want to get this clear. I do understand the drivers are very upset that there's a crane out on circuit, right? And I do understand that it's not supposed to be a crane out on circuit with the car still moving around, or with a loose car who's not attached to the crocodile, right? As they call it, the snake that's behind the safety car, right? I understand all that, but the driver has to take some responsibility here. Now, everyone can take some responsibility, as a matter of fact, but yeah, it's time for the drivers to take some responsibility. Don't be invoking Bianchi when I didn't hear no Bianchi being invoked for any of these other fucking situations involving VSCs or safety cars throughout the season, where people were testing limits with arrival times at all these fucking sectors, right? I don't want to hear none of that. Sincerely, I don't want to hear none of that, because that's some bullshit. That's some bullshit. Don't be invoking Bianchi when if there was a time to invoke Bianchi, I would have liked Perez to say, this isn't. I would have liked Perez to say, like, after the French Grand Prix when George Russell did a muzz on him after the VS, I would have liked him to say, I would like George to show a little bit more respect for Bianchi's legacy, because we have the virtual safety car because of this Bianchi accident. I'd like him to show a little bit. That would have been the time. Alright, that would have been the fucking time. That was good racing, wasn't it? There was nothing about Bianchi over there. I don't want to hear none of that. I just don't want to hear none of that. Alright, the Halo got nothing at all to do with Bianchi at all. At all. And them man ran the numbers, and the Halo would not have changed nothing about Bianchi's accident. So I don't want to hear none of that. Anyway. Alright, Alpine have caught Mercedes. It's probably a good thing, actually. Maybe they'll just secure a third now and not hassle Ferrari too much in terms of taking second place away from them in the Constructors' Championship. But right, for the rest of the season, keep in mind that Alpine have caught Mercedes. And now will be a really good time to observe how George Russell does, because, well, you're no longer racing forward, you're having to race backwards and sometimes around you, because Alonso, he's gonna show him a few things. Well, assuming the Alpine has actually caught up with the Mercedes. I'm assuming that. It looked like it on the optics from the Suzuka weekend. But yeah, a dry Grand Prix might have looked very different. So yeah, do expect a difficult end of season for Mercedes here. I expect George Russell to return to form soon as we have a dry Grand Prix. Or at least proper form. I mean, he's been... all this luck fucking balances out as the season goes on. Right now, he's had to stack and queue for tires. And he's not gotten the rub off the green. Very lucky early on in the season. The luck's not going to quite hold as the whole season goes on. And the season is grueling. Right, on a real level with you, I think George is actually, I believe George is actually getting a bit jaded by the length of the season, because it's a different thing being in Mercedes. Yeah, there's workloads at Williams and all of that. Yeah, you gotta go do PR here and there and make this meeting, that meeting, make this briefing, that briefing. Yeah, it's all the same thing, but there's a level of excellence of consistent excellence as well, that is required at a Mercedes, at a Red Bull. Maybe not a Ferrari. I don't know what Ferrari doing right now, but historically you would say also at a Ferrari, and historically you would have said at a Williams, but Williams demonstrated not to be that right now. So now George Russell, he's finding out at Mercedes, you gotta bring your A game every single weekend. You gotta be driving 10 out of 10 every weekend. Right? It's not enough to come out and bust a 7 out of 10. It's not enough to come do an 8 out of 10. You gotta do a 10 out of 10. Every motherfucking weekend. And as the season goes on and on and on, it's hard. It's hard. These guys are lucky that Russia didn't happen. This Russian Grand Prix was supposed to happen before the Singapore Grand Prix. Oh, can you imagine? I'm tired just talking about the F1, goddamn. And these men are fucking living that? No. That's some hectic shit. And it looks like it's getting to George now. I mean, he'll bounce back. I expect if we get a dry race at Circuit of the Americas, a lot of wet races this season. I expect Circuit of the Americas to be dry, and then we'll probably get a wet race in Brazil. And then I'll have to talk about some... I have to cover some esoteric if that happens. But yeah, very difficult sequence of Grand Prix for George Russell. But this was expected. There's levels to this thing. Now's the time to learn that there's levels to this thing. Even if you are not in a a title challenging season, you keep going. You keep going, and if you're in a title challenging season, you might see Sir Lewis Hamilton turn that shit up to 11. You're not gonna know what the fuck's going on. Maybe even 12. Who knows? I think Verstappen saw him turn it up to 12. He said this is unreal last season. The way he was aging, I don't know what if he was raging after Singapore, then I don't know what the fuck he would have been doing last season in those back rooms. Woo! He would have been kicking up a tornado every time he came in at the end of that season. Now I'm gonna pivot right into Alpine here. Right, Button has noted that Alonso has been very unlucky in 2022. Right, he's been incredibly unlucky. Then after the lap times, of course he's on fresh tires. Astounding that fresh inters were that much faster at the end of the Grand Prix. Well, we had a very short at the end of the Grand Prix that we got. Just astounding that that fresh inters were that much faster. Right, I've never seen that before in F1. That's the first time I've seen that. Something like that. I think Pirelli should simmer down on this new tire thing. Let me not talk about tire philosophy now. It's not actually important. But yeah, Alonso has been very unlucky this season. After the type of lap times he was busting out at the end of this Grand Prix. Whew. Alpine are very fortunate that Alonso has been as unlucky as he's been, because the optics of getting rid of him and replacing him with Gasly would just, well, that would just not play well. That would just not play well if he wasn't as unlucky as he has been. But he's got very good reason to be unlucky. We've covered that. Now, Gasly is heading to Alpine for 2023. Right. I was scoping 1D's channel. I'm gonna call him 1D now. I was scoping 1D's channel. He had this article up of Red Bull collecting 9 million from Gasly's from Gasly's move to Alpine. Well, Alpine just had to buy out the contract. Right, they had to. There's no two ways about it, because he signed the thing. As soon as that Yuri Vips scenario happened, Gasly was given a new contract. These guys didn't expect anyone to be ready. Marco didn't expect anyone to be ready for the F1 thing. It was Vips or bust. I thought they were going to put Liam Lawson in the thing. Can't believe they haven't. I actually wish they would have. But they got the Vries. And so Alpine, they've had to buy Gasly's contract on account of he signed the thing. And yeah, that cost 9 mil. Right? It's just a budgeting exercise. No, it's not even a budgeting exercise. It's just an accounting exercise for Red Bull, that. Right? Because the budget, the mandated budget by F1, that's the budget. Like, some of these men, they got billions in the coffers. They wish they could spend that shit now. They can't. Right? Some of these men, they've got billions in the bank. So 9 mil contract buyout, this doesn't even matter. Right? This doesn't even matter. Maybe Travis Pastrana can run another event somewhere, another extreme sports event somewhere. Who the fuck knows? Right? He can go skateboarding again. Right? That's skateboarding money for Pastrana. That's motocross money for Pastrana. Anyway. So that's just not even going in. That's just not even going back into the F1 program. I mean, seriously, unless, I don't know, they put that into Red Bull powertrains. Is what it is. They should develop that anyway. I think F1 would be more interesting with a Red Bull powertrains on the grid, actually making their own engines. Because I had styled them as the new Cosworth, but well, it doesn't seem we're going to be getting that. Doesn't seem like we're going to be getting that. Anyway, Alpine's lineup for 2023, Gasly and Ocon. There was a rumor about that that they were not going to have the best of working relationships because of a Gjaldem that they both encountered early on in their lives. The real talk on this is that this is for the gents. Never ever fight over a woman with another guy. Never in your fucking life. There's too many women out here, bro. We're like, what are you doing? If she wants to go be with that guy, let her do a thing. Let her do a thing. At least she showed you that. Now you can move on with your life and not worry about none of this shit. She'll get her just desserts, right? Don't even worry about that. You just keep it moving. So never ever fight over these galdem. Never burn bridges over these galdem. The galdem is choosing another guy. Don't be getting angsty about it. Just let it happen. You keep it moving. You're a king. Keep it moving. Tatiana doing her thing don't matter. And if you're not Tatiana, please don't be getting offended. Like, people just be wearing shoes that ain't even theirs. Nah. So I expect Gasly and Ocon to get on well. I'm not sure what having two Frenchmen at Alpine will do for Alpine. We'll see. But yeah, Alpine, on first impressions, they've caught up with Mercedes. And, well, this is going to be a very challenging end of season run-in for Mercedes. And a very interesting end of season run-in for Alpine. I've got to now talk about this audits fallout. Now, number one, I genuinely did not expect Red Bull to have actually breached financial regulations. Well, even if they did breach financial regulations, I did not expect that to be in the final print. Alright? I didn't expect that to be in the final papers, no matter what the amounts, even if it was 100k. And I expected if a breach was going to be announced, that it was going to be something like 100k, at most 400k, not $1 million up. Right? I didn't expect that. I'm actually shocked it's more than 1%. What's 1%? So 145 mil budget, 1.45 mil. And the reported breach is 1.8 mil right now. Now what were all the breaches, right? Because multiple teams were in some sort of breach. The teams that were in breach, Tracing Martin, they had a procedural breach. Williams, they also had a procedural breach that got handled by the ABA. I forget what the ABA stands for, the auditing board or something like this, something related to the FIA. The page is down right now. I don't know why they took that fucking news page down. It's very bizarre thing. Maybe so many people are just clicking on it that it crashed the site. Who knows? Right, but it's very bizarre that it's gone down. I would expect that with something as followed as F1 that they would be used to experiencing high traffic loads, but I suppose that speaks to just what type of fallout is coming from this shit. So Williams were in a procedural breach. They handed fouls in late, right? This is all a procedural breach is. You might hand some fouls in late. You might recall some shit to, we made a mistake here, make an edit. you might have to do one of these things, and it would just be a procedural breach, and you can get that resolved quite quickly by letting the auditors just have a look at your shit. Just, okay, why was your shit late? Well, or maybe we had maybe the printer is on the fry or some shit. Who knows, right? Some office problem. Could be anything. But yeah, they had procedural breaches and not actual financial breaches. Although I'm not sure if Tracing Martin are reported as having a minor financial breach. I don't believe they had a minor financial breach, just a procedural breach. Now Red Bull had a procedural breach and a minor breach of 1.8 mil. Right, that's about 1.2, 1.3%? So somewhere there. Now, realistically, I think the value is more likely to be 3 to 4 mil. Right, that's what I realistically think has gone on, because there's been a value that's made it to the newspapers. Right, I didn't expect any value to make it to the newspapers. I thought they would have been able to lubricate enough hands and eyes with some petty cash to get the certificate. and somehow it hasn't happened. But 1.8 mil has been announced. Now I think they're over budget by more, 3 to 4 mil, maybe even 5 mil. At the end of the day, I'm just shocked that they're over the cap at all. All right, I'm just shocked that they're over the cap at all. Likewise, this whole situation as it's brewed over these weeks, right, over these 2 weeks, right, this is confirmation clear as day, right, that Shyla Ann Rao is Toto Wolff's inside ear at the auditing board of the FIA, right, or not even at the auditing board. She can probably see all sorts of papers that come past her, right? But Toto, he's got an inside ear now. And when he was shouting 8 mil, well, one, I think he was obfuscating over there. What? I think he was doing 2 things. One, confirming that he does have some sort of inside link, but 2, obfuscating that detail by mentioning such an outlandish amount. Right? It's like conspiracy theories, right? You know, Toto mentioned 8, the actual reported number was 1.8, somewhere in the middle. Right? It's always going to be somewhere in the middle. So the low ball is 1.8, the high ball mentioned by Toto is 8 mil. So they have to be over budget by some 3 to 4 mil. What can you get? Like, let's just say they're over budget by 1.8 mil. What can you get with 1.8 mil? And I don't want to see no fucking stupid comments saying it was fucking lunch money. Unless it's a funny, someone's cracking a joke. Right? Because there's no... Which fucking... What are these guys eating? Michelin star? 1.8 mil for lunch? Yo, fam. Yo. Now... Now, what can you get with 1.8 mil? Well, Sir Lewis Hamilton did leak after Singapore, I believe. He did leak that a floor, or maybe it was at the start of this Japanese Grand Prix, but he leaked that a new spec floor, being built to Mercedes spec, right? He whistle blew this whole shit. He whistle blew that would cost 300k. $300,000, 1.8 mil that they're in breach of. Okay, so you can get a floor for 300k. You can probably do a side parts for 400k, you got 700k, front wing for 100k, rear wing 200k. We haven't even filled up that 1.8 mil. Alright, likewise, whatever engines Red Bull were running at the back end of last season, those were ridiculous. Those were the fucking rocket engines. Alright, those were the fucking rocket engines. So, who knows, maybe a 500k turbo upgrade was only enough parts for one car, and and to keep it moving. Alright, so that 1.8 mil can get a lot onto the car. That 1.8 mil can do a lot of work on the fucking car. And these are in dollars. Yo, who do these men think they're playing with? 1.8 mil US dollars? What's the fucking lowest valuation I can give their money? 1.8 mil euros? That's a lot of fucking money. And if we're talking 1.8 mil pounds, of course this is all in dollars, but if it were 1.8 mil pounds, like, whose lunch is costing, you know, who the fuck are you feeding? It doesn't cost this much to feed. Hey, yo, it's like they're hiring Gordon Ramsay to do the catering for every weekend or something. And I don't even think his bill would come to 1.8 mil. And that aside, I think they've spent more than that, as I've said. Because a number was announced at all. Which is just absurd to me. That, you know, Red Bull have even allowed this situation to manifest. Like, how? How? And now this is all over Verstappen's championships. Both championships. This one And of course, it was regarding last season's budget, but now that's spilled over into this season. So, what do we do now? What do we do now with this kid? You can have all the talent in the world and and trust you me, the universe has a very funny way of evening out the scales. Schumacher, he could have probably won more titles than 7 titles, you know? He probably could have won a lot more than 7 fucking. He probably could have won 10 titles. But he's just a bit too dirty, a bit too unsporting. And the universe got a funny way of balancing these fucking scales. So all this shit that's cooking around Maximilian Verstappen now. hey. Well, this shit's gonna come home to roost at some point. 1.8 mil. 300k for a Mercedes spec floor. 1.8 mil. And I'm highballing with like the front and rear wing costs of 100k and 200k respectively. I'm highballing on that shit. The new front wing is probably 50k. It's not like they're building a whole new fucking wing concept from scratch. You're just, doing some R&D on making the current one a little better with the modification. Anyway. F1 got a whole mess to clean up here now. I don't believe that this scandal is going to rumble on for any meaningful amount of time. I don't even think it's going to be whatever agreement Red Bull make with the FIA. I expect it to be made quickly, maybe even before this video releases. But whatever agreement that they make with the FIA, I expect it to be made quickly, and I don't expect this to be a storyline that continues for any meaningful amount of time, unless Mercedes and Ferrari were not just talking big about what they were going to do if there was a breach of budget caps. So right now I'm waiting for Toto to go to court, and I'm waiting for Ferrari to spend 500 mil and not give a fuck. Quite frankly, I'm waiting for something like that to happen. That would be so crazy if Ferrari just said, hey yo, fuck your budget cap. And they just dropped a $500 million project on the season. That would be so fucking crazy. I would have a good laugh at this point, honestly. I would just have a good fucking laugh. But anyway. Alright, I gotta talk about some of the good racing that we did get at Suzuka. Alright, so one, Sir Lewis Hamilton drove an epic race. Right, he's not gonna get the results or the film that it perhaps warranted, but this is why we love Sir Lewis Hamilton. He just kept on trying and trying and trying until the very end. And Ocon, really good drive by him to defend against Lewis Hamilton the whole time. Of course, the cars don't match up all that well. Maybe with the DRS, who knows? I think DRS should be removed anyway. Mercedes wouldn't have developed the car in this direction if DRS didn't. Anyway, very good racing there. Maximilian Verstappen, of course, he's got the sparkling film. That overtake at the start was redonkulous. Okay, I thought Leclerc had gotten ahead. I thought Leclerc had sealed it. Right, I thought it was going to be leading heading into those aces. That didn't happen at all. Maximilian had other plans. Great piece of film over there. Great drive. I mean, after that he just romped away really into the distance. Great drive. Leclerc couldn't live with him. He tried to, and his tires couldn't do that. Right, after he set his fastest lap of the Grand Prix, and that fastest lap stayed for a while, right? But, I mean, it took Guan Yu Zhou pitting for fresh inters to break that fastest lap. So after he set that fastest lap, his tires were gone. Leclerc said this already early on, but he can't get no good racing awards after that. He can't get a shout out after that. Maximilian, the way he drove, yeah, okay, you get a shout out for that. That was an amazing drive. All this controversy that happened on the side is unfortunate for him, but it's gonna stick. It is what it is. Alright, I am just here for the racing at the end of the day. This other shit, I just see it. Who else had a great drive? Vettel. Yeah, really great drive from Vettel, and I believe Latifi should probably get a shout out. Yeah, I have to single out Latifi for some praise here. This is his one good result. I don't expect him to get another good result at the back end of the season. I mean, the other Canadian has impressed me a lot the back end of the season. I thought Sebastian was going to show him some real manners. I must say, I thought Sebastian was going to show Stroll some real manners at the back end of the season after the Belgian Grand Prix. And Stroll, I don't know, something might have clicked for him. It wasn't shown any manners. Right, he's very much held his own against Vettel, and quite frankly raced really well at the back end of the season. Latifi, he's pulled out a great result here. Good for him. I'm not going to open up the Sofina Foods dossier, and who knows, Sofina Foods might have bought a result from here. I don't believe that's happened, but good on Latifi. maybe Gunther will really take this Latifi offer. It comes with a lot of money. That's Sofina Foods money. Ain't no light shit. That's a lot of money. Oh, I also got to mention, I love the Japanese audience. Love y'all. Beautiful. You know, these men don't need a fucking concert going on. There's Formula One out here. We got Formula One cars coming out onto the circuit. What you doing with the concert, Singapore? What you doing with the concert, Miami? What? Y'all don't need concerts. You got Formula One cars. Watch the damn F1 cars. God damn it. Japanese? Is Japanese man them? Motorsport's crazy. They got F1 cars coming in for the weekend. What? Cancel all other activities going on at Suzuka. There's F1 on. I don't want to hear no concert. I don't want to drown out none of this. We're not playing no stupid music on the fucking on the fucking announcers system, on the announcer speakers. We're not playing no fucking music like at Monza. God, that was really fucking annoying at Monza when the fucking music was playing. Which song was that was playing? Sounded so some fucking pop song at the end of the day. I don't mind pop, but fucking not at my F1. Goddamn, no, not at the fucking Grand Prix. But anyway, yeah, great audience. Japanese are a great audience for F1. I quite appreciated that it was all about Formula One. There wasn't no concert going on like when we're in America. There wasn't no music on the loudspeakers like there's been at a lot of fucking Grand Prix this season. Kind of drives me insane. There wasn't any of that. Beautiful audience. Love y'all. One note from commentary. Alright, the worst car is the 10th best car in the world. Alright, Chando dropped that one. It's truism if ever there was one. That's a truism if ever there was one. Now, he also noted that there's been convergence of the cars, right? And what does he mean by convergence? He meant convergence in terms of how they deliver their performance. Because, well, there's no cars that are sliding around in the dry, getting tail happy or any of that. That's not how driving works anymore in F1. Right? It never really worked like that to begin with. Well, I suppose before Aero. Before Aero is a whole different situation. But yeah, you would see cars sliding about a lot before. The thing is now, even the Williams looks planted, right? If you go back to when Minardi were racing, right? And you look at some of the onboards coming from Minardi when what was that? When we had one shot qualifying, everyone had a single lap, and you would usually get like onboards of Minardi or something out of the ordinary, right? Steering wheel was always moving around in those cars, like, you know, the driver's sawing left and right on this thing. You know, every 20 meters, some sort of correction has to be made on this car. It's somehow about to crash itself. That doesn't happen on any of the cars now. The worst car, which car is the worst car right now? Oh, I guess they take turns, and well, Which car is the fucking worst car? The Alfa Romeo right now? It's not sliding around anyway. I would assume the Alfa Romeo. Either the Alfa or the Haas. Tracy Martin have been too good recently to put them in there. Oh. Likewise Williams. Anyway. But even the worst car on the grid is not sliding about anyway. The drivers aren't having to make massive corrections on the steering wheel on their side. I know they get the car wide or something. It's not how the cars deliver their performance anymore. And right now it's a case of which cars are more efficient in terms of how they deliver their performance. Right, the Red Bull has very high efficiency. The Ferrari has high efficiency, but the Ferrari themselves don't even understand why it has high efficiency. The Mercedes has interesting efficiencies, but it's not efficient in a straight line. It's inefficient in a straight line. And that was shown up definitely here at Suzuka. Right, that's gonna hurt them at a few places. They can't fix it anyway, right? They're out of budget for the rest of the season because they actually play by the rules. So so they can't do much on their car outside of doing some wizardry with setup. Alpine, they got much bigger budget. They're probably still adding parts. Who knows? When did Mercedes add the last part? They've added these bits under their mirrors. I'm not sure what those are. Those huge flaps. Anyway, they've added those. Right, I'm not convinced by them, but yeah, that's a thing that they've done now, and that's their last upgrade. There's nothing more coming to that car. That's it, done. Right, they now got to understand that package and get the best out of it. How lucky for them, they've got Sir Lewis Hamilton there to do just that. But yeah, Alpine seem to have gained a whole lot of efficiency on their car. And well, it's starting to show, and I've spoken about this earlier in the video, and well, all things considered, the worst car on the grid is still the 10th best car in the world. It's a different game, Formula 1. Anyway, that's the vid. Thanks for watching. Peace.
Hell breezy. Let me show you how to keep the dice rolling when you're doing that thing over there, homie. Hey, let's go! Cause I'm feeling like I'm running and I'm feeling like I gotta get away. Better know that I don't and I won't ever stop. Cause you know I gotta win every day. Go! See, really wanna pop me. Go! Just know that you will never flop me. And I know that I gotta be a little cocky. Go! You ain't never gonna stop me. Every time I come a nigga gotta set it, then I gotta go and then I gotta get it, then I gotta blow and then I gotta shut it. Any little thing a nigga think that he be doing, cause it doesn't matter, cause I'm gonna dead it. Then I'm gonna murder everything and anything about it. Boom, about a bing. I gotta do a lot of things to make it clearer to a couple niggas that I always win and then I gotta get it again and again and again. And I be doing it to death and now I move a little foul. Nigga better call a rap and everybody know my style. Niggas know that I'm the best when it comes to doing this. And I be banging on my chest and I bang in the east and I banging in the west. And I kinda give you more and I will never give you less. You will hear it in the street and you can read it in the press. Do you really wanna know what's next? Let's go. See the way we on it and we all up in the race. And you know we gotta go now try to keep up with the pace. And we struggling and hustling and set it and get it. And